Welcome to the debate. Imagine for a second that you are holding a $50 gadget in a store.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Right, so what if the price tag didn't say $50? What if instead it read, this will cost you exactly 3 irretrievable hours of your lifespan? Like, would you still put it in your cart?
Man, that completely changes the math, doesn't it? I mean, suddenly you aren't spending some abstract, renewable resource. You're spending a literal piece of your own existence.
Exactly. And, that jarring shift in perspective is the exact mechanism at the heart of our focus today. We're analyzing the core thesis of the life energy roadmap, mastering money and time.
Yeah, it's a fascinating piece of material.
It really is. The premise is basically that time, not money, is life's ultimate asset. And to drive this home, the text argues that money is essentially life energy. It's a direct mathematical representation of the finite hours of your life that you've traded to an employer for dollars.
Right. It forces a total, visceral reevaluation of what a single dollar actually represents in your pocket.
Exactly. And I take the position that this framework, equating money precisely to life energy and advocating for the hypervigilant tracking of every single dollar is a profound and logically sound mechanism.
Oh, I'm sure you do.
I do. Because it is perhaps the only effective way to short-circuit modern consumerism, to defeat hedonic adaptation, and to, achieve genuine financial independence.
Well, I completely agree that the material's ultimate goal of financial independence is necessary, obviously. But its foundational equation, the idea that money literally equals life energy, is frankly conceptually contradictory.
You think so?
I absolutely think so. I argue that strict adherence to this one-to-one mapping creates a very restrictive scarcity mindset. It taxes your cognitive bandwidth. And more importantly, that mindset structurally conflicts with the text's own eventual reliance on passive income and capital leverage.
Okay, I see why you think that, but let me give you a different perspective on why that equation isn't just a metaphor, but a vital psychological tool. I mean, we exist in an economic environment where the friction of spending has been systematically eradicated.
Right, it's all just digital now.
Exactly. You tap a phone, an algorithm processes the payment, and bam, the product arrives at your door. The environment is actively designed to uncouple the price tag from the human cost required to acquire it.
The abstraction of digital currency, yeah, it makes it too easy.
Precisely. So viewing money strictly as life energy injects friction back into a frictionless system. It is the ultimate antidote to that manipulation,
I guess it slows you down, sure.
It does more than slow you down. The realization that time can never, ever be bought back is the necessary catalyst here. I mean, we throw around terms like needs and wants, but those words are too vague to change real behavior.
Yeah, they don't carry any real weight for most people.
Right. But when you look at a $50 takeout meal and say, this costs me 3 hours of my life that I will never get back, the difference between a biological need and a superficial want becomes agonizingly clear.
Agonizing being the key word there.
But a good agony. It forces purposeful spending because you're suddenly protective of your life force, your actual mortality, rather than just an arbitrary ledger balance.
Look, I get the emotional appeal, I really do. And I won't deny that it can trigger a powerful awakening for someone who is just, completely trapped in a cycle of mindless consumption.
Exactly. It's a wake-up call.
It is, but I challenge its psychological consistency as a long-term operating system. Teaching people to hyperfixate on the fact that every single dollar represents a fraction of their finite life can easily lead to a totally paralyzed relationship with money.
You think it makes them too anxious?
I think it turns a trip to the grocery store into an existential crisis. I mean, if I buy a premium coffee, am I spending 15 minutes of my soul? That is a heavy, heavy burden to carry through life.
I mean, it's just being aware.
No, from a psychological standpoint, we know that operating in a state of hypervigilance drains cognitive bandwidth. Every transaction becomes this profound moral calculation.
But isn't that moral calculation exactly what's missing in our culture? If we look at the methodology, the mandate to meticulously track every $5 or $20 expense isn't meant to be an existential punishment.
It sure sounds like one.
It's a diagnostic necessity. Human beings are fundamentally terrible at intuitively grasping the compounding effect of small numbers over long periods.
Right, but is the meticulous tracking of every single penny the only way to achieve that awareness? I mean, surely there are broader budgeting methods.
I would argue it is the most effective way to stop the devastating phenomenon of lifestyle inflation. The text points out this tragic irony, right? The more money many people make, the poorer they often feel.
Because they just buy more expensive stuff.
Exactly. They get a raise, their baseline spending unconsciously expands to match it, and they remain trapped on the treadmill. Tracking every dollar as a unit of life energy breaks hedonic adaptation. It forces a cognitive pause before the habit loop takes over.
Well, I come at it from a different way. Let's look at how the text defines financial independence later on. It explicitly says financial independence doesn't mean sitting on a beach forever, right?
Right. It means having the freedom to choose how you spend your time.
Exactly. So I have a fundamental question about that definition in the context of this methodology. If a person must constantly calculate the existential time cost of a $5 cup of coffee, haven't they just replaced the prison of endless shopping with the prison of micro-accounting?
I wouldn't call it a prison.
How is that freedom? You're just serving a different master, the spreadsheet instead of the shopping mall.
Okay, that's an interesting point, though. I would definitely frame it differently. I'll concede that, sure, in the initial phases, the micro-accounting is exhausting.
Extremely exhausting.
It takes a lot of mental energy to rebuild your relationship with capital. But the tracking isn't a permanent prison. It is the architecture of freedom.
Come on, how does obsessing over receipts build architecture?
Because without it, you're drifting. The material introduces this vital concept of defining how much is enough. You literally cannot define what is enough if you don't have empirical data on what you're actually consuming.
So you're saying it's just about gathering data?
Yes, the tracking isn't about guilt. It's a diagnostic tool that allows a person to align their spending with their core values. Once you know exactly what brings you genuine fulfillment versus what is just an endless, dopamine-driven shopping reflex, you are free.
If you say so.
I do. The tracking is just the map that gets you out of the maze.
A map that requires you to continuously bleed your emotional energy over every minor transaction? I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that. And let me tell you why this breaks down fundamentally.
All right, let's hear it.
It breaks down not just psychologically, but structurally in the math of wealth building. Let's pivot to how the material handles investing and compound interest.
Okay, you're referring to the transition from active saving to letting your money work for you.
Exactly. We all understand the mechanics of passive income, right? The classic analogy of planting a financial tree that eventually bears fruit without you needing to water it with your daily labor.
A beautiful concept.
It is. But the moment you plant that tree, the moment your capital starts generating yield, the initial premise of the entire roadmap basically collapses.
How so? The premise is what got you the capital to plant the tree in the first place.
But look at the math. The foundational equation we are debating is this. Money equals your life energy. You trade your hours for dollars. But with compound interest in capital markets, money is growing without your labor.
Right, it compounds.
It is compounding while you sleep. If a stock portfolio generates $50,000 in dividends this year, how many hours of your life energy did that take?
Well, actively, none.
Right, 0. Therefore, money is not simply your life energy. The framework fails at the exact moment of financial success.
I wouldn't say it fails.
It absolutely does. It teaches a philosophy of labor that directly contradicts the philosophy of capital required to actually become independent.
I'm just not convinced by that line of reasoning because it completely ignores the origin of the capital. I mean, you're looking at the harvest and totally ignoring the sweat it took to buy the seeds.
But the harvest is the goal.
Yes, but you cannot decouple the dividend from the initial labor.
But the growth itself, the geometric expansion of the asset, is totally decoupled from your biological time. A dollar can work 24/7. You can only work a fraction of that.
Yes, obviously the growth scales differently, but the initial capital was biologically derived. You are trading your initial finite life energy, those early years of disciplined saving, of experiencing that friction we talked about, to buy back your future time.
Okay, I follow the logic, but
Think of capital as a battery.
a battery?
Yes, a battery. You are literally crystallizing your biological calories and time into an asset.
You are storing your active life energy into an investment vehicle, which then radiates passive energy back to you decades later.
That is a very poetic way to describe a brokerage account.
But it's accurate. That dividend check isn't free money. It's the ghost of your 30-year-old self's labor paying your 50-year-old self. The framework is completely consistent here.
I see the connection you're making.
The stored life energy in that tree gives you the autonomy to direct your future life energy wherever you want.
Okay, that is a compelling argument. But have you considered the behavioral consequences of that framing? If I believe money is exclusively a crystallized measure of my physical labor, if I truly internalize that one-to-one mapping, I will naturally shy away from leverage.
Why would you shy away from it?
Because it feels unnatural. I'll shy away from calculated risk, from letting capital do the heavy lifting. The transition from earning wages to allocating capital requires a complete paradigm shift.
I think you're underestimating people's ability to adapt.
No, I think the strict life energy equation obscures that shift because it keeps you anchored in a blue-collar mindset where only sweat equals value. It makes people terrified to lose $1 because they think they're losing a piece of their arm.
Well, I don't believe it obscures the shift. I believe it contextualizes it for the people who actually need it. The material isn't trying to create, venture capitalists or Wall Street analysts who view money as abstract game pieces.
True.
It is trying to rescue ordinary people who are trapped in a vicious cycle of earning and spending. To fully appreciate why the framework anchors so heavily on the reality of finite time, we have to look at the material's ultimate thought experiment, the big twist.
Ah, you mean the $100 million scenario?
Yes, it poses a devastatingly simple question to the reader. If you were given $100 million tomorrow, but you had absolutely no time left to live to enjoy it, would you really be rich?
And the answer, obviously and universally, would be no.
Right. And I bring this up to solidify my stance that the framework is philosophically bulletproof from page 1 to the end. The $100 million scenario proves that money, in a vacuum, has zero intrinsic value.
Obviously.
You can't eat it, you can't breathe it, it is merely a tool, a means of exchange. Money should only ever be viewed as a mechanism to facilitate a better life.
I agree with that.
So this thought experiment proves definitively that time is the ultimate currency, which validates the initial premise that we must protect our time by fiercely guarding how we spend our money.
Well, I agree that it is a brilliant rhetorical device. I'll give it that. But I argue this thought experiment actually proves my point about the conceptual flaw in the foundational math.
Wait, how could that possibly prove your point? It literally demonstrates that time is vastly more valuable than money.
Exactly. It shows they are distinct variables. The $100 million example demonstrates that time and money are fundamentally two different forces. They are not equal to one another.
They represent each other, though.
No, you can have infinite money and zero time, or infinite time and zero money.
But in reality, for most people,
Let me finish this thought because it's crucial. By conflating them early in the roadmap, by insisting that money equals life energy, the text confuses the reality that mastering life requires managing time and money as distinct parallel forces.
I just disagree that it confuses people.
But it does. Money isn't life energy. Money is just a tool, as you just admitted. Time is life energy. Equating the tool with the energy itself creates the very psychological trap of microaccounting we discussed earlier.
But for the vast majority of humanity, how is the tool acquired? It is acquired by burning the energy. Unless you inherit wealth, the only way to obtain the tool is to trade your finite hours.
Yes, at the start.
The text makes them synonymous because in practice, for the working person, they are entirely synonymous. You go to a factory or an office for 8 hours, you get the tool. You give up the biological energy, you get the tool. The equation holds because it reflects lived reality.
It holds in the early stages of wealth accumulation, yes. I will absolutely concede that for someone digging out of consumer debt, viewing their spending through the lens of their hourly wage is a brutally effective wake-up call.
Exactly. It works.
But my critique is about the ceiling of that philosophy. To reach the very financial independence the material promises, you have to eventually break that mental equivalence.
Break it how?
You have to realize that $1 can work harder than you can, and that protecting your time eventually means letting go of the idea that money is just your sweat recorded on a ledger.
So you're saying the framework is a ladder you climb, but then you have to kick the ladder away once you reach a certain height of wealth?
Precisely. That's a great way to put it. If you keep carrying the ladder with you, if you keep equating every dividend or capital gain to hours of your life, you'll never actually enjoy the freedom you've bought. You'll just be optimizing spreadsheets until the day you die.
Let's look at where these perspectives leave us in analyzing the overarching value of the Life Energy Roadmap. From my perspective, the Life Energy framework remains a brilliant, necessary cognitive shift.
It's certainly a shift.
We exist in a culture engineered by highly paid psychologists to extract our wealth through mindless consumption. By forcing individuals to weigh every single purchase against their finite lifespan, by making them acutely aware of the hours they are permanently trading for possessions, it rescues them from the invisible manipulations of advertising and the trap of hedonic adaptation.
It certainly provides the friction needed to stop the bleeding. I agree with that.
Yes, it demands purposeful spending, and ultimately, that leads to a more meaningful life where time is protected above all else because you finally, truly understand its scarcity.
And I would summarize my position by saying that while the material offers an excellent emotionally resonant warning against that mindless consumption, its core equation really breaks down upon close inspection.
You just can't get past the math.
The math matters. The one-to-one mapping of money to life energy creates a heavy cognitive and psychological burden. And more fundamentally, it contradicts the mathematical mechanics of wealth building.
Because of the separation of capital and labor.
Exactly. True financial maturity requires moving beyond the money equals hours worked mindset. You have to recognize that time and money are separate variables.
But they are linked.
Linked, but separate. That separation is what allows you to truly understand leverage, investment, and passive growth without feeling existential guilt over every minor transaction.
Well, yet, despite our profound disagreement on the mechanical application and long-term sustainability of the life energy equation, it seems we both strongly agree on the material's final powerful reveal.
We do. The observation about the end of life is completely undeniable.
Yeah.
When people reach the end of their lives, you can look at all the sociological data. They rarely, if ever, wish they had accumulated more capital. They inevitably wish they had spent more time living.
It recalibrates the entire pursuit. The material successfully proves that fewer possessions, chosen with deep intention, can lead to vastly greater happiness than just a mountain of unthinking purchases driven by lifestyle inflation.
Absolutely. The pursuit of financial independence isn't about the accumulation of capital for its own sake, just to sit on a high score. It's about the reclamation of agency.
Perfectly said.
It is about buying back your Tuesday afternoon so you can spend it with your kids or reading a book. In that regard, the text's ultimate destination is exactly right, even if I take major issue with the vehicle it uses to get us there.
Which leaves us with a profound concept to reflect on, drawn straight from the material's parting advice. Before you manage your money, learn to manage your life.
Words to live by.
Truly. We started this discussion by picturing a digital bank statement resetting itself. This illusion of infinity in a frictionless world. But as we return to the image of the hourglass, with the sand steadily, quietly slipping through the narrow glass, the true nature of our wealth becomes clear.
It does.
The question we leave you to ponder is this. When you look at your own savings, do you see a static pile of accumulated capital? Or do you see a reservoir of your own stored life energy waiting to be spent on the time you have left?